What's up, everybody? My heater is on, and you're going to hear it. I'm sorry. It's fucking cold. There's a freeze warning, actually.
Oh, wow. That is cold for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right now here, it's hold on. I'm gonna take a look and see what the temperature is currently. Currently, it's a balmy 30 degrees, so not too bad. Not too bad. Just slightly below freezing. It's not snowing right now. It's actually a really clear night outside.
Nice.
I love winter skies. So nice. Orion's out. It's beautiful. Love it.
It's 50 here now, but it's going to get to like 42 in a bit.
Wow. I wish that it would get to 42 in a bit. I'm so fucking sick of winter, and it hasn't even been that bad. We haven't had... I don't think there's been any days in the single digits yet, so I'm keeping my fingers and toes crossed. We've only had one bad snowstorm so far. They've called for like 3 or 4 of them, but they all end up being like little wimpy things that roll through and just drop a few inches of snow and move on.
Nice.
But yeah, but February is usually the biggest bitch and bastard of the year, so we'll see how it goes. But so far so good.
That's good.
Yeah. I know for like 42 for you is fuck you cold though.
Yeah, it can get colder, but yeah, I don't fucking enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I came across something that it was kind of a fun thing to research and discover. I had never heard of it. And it kind of made me think about why we do this. What was so interesting about the paranormal when we were young, what got us into it, how we studied and researched it when we were kids. What do you think about all these stories that we've covered going on 10 years now? The stuff that, I mean, it doesn't have to be the most obscure shit, but that makes a better case for my argument. So we'll do that. Like, I don't give too much shade to the sky spitters. I'm not trying to shoot down sky spitters, but what makes stuff like sky spitters and drill hands and fucking dick-nosed aliens and all those weird things is that it's just something that somebody reported. It's something that supposedly happened. And that's what made it cool for me. Did you read that shit and chuckle and be like, oh, fuck, that's weird, and just kind of moved on and consumed more stuff? Or
to me it was always like it captivated the imagination for me. Like the idea that there's other races of beings that might exist out in the universe and come see us. And like, I always loved the weirder ones, you know, like the Greys never really interested me all that much. Like cause they just, I don't know, they didn't really captivate the imagination, but like those cases with the furry 4-foot tall, I don't want to say Bigfoot. They were just covered in fur, 4 feet tall, trying to abduct a woman. Like, that's the shit that gets me. I'm like, what is that? What the fuck? And why was it just one time that these little hairy aliens tried to abduct this woman? Or like Flatwoods, where it's just something that's just so fucking bizarre and doesn't match the descriptions of anything before or since. It's just this weird fucking thing that shows up. So to me, it was like the monsters could maybe be real, you know, whether they were aliens or Loch Ness or Bigfoot or ghosts. Like it was like because I've always been a fan of horror and being afraid and all that stuff. So to me, it was like the potential for some of this stuff being real. That's what I found in these reports and these cases. And that's what really like grabbed me and kept me interested in the subject. And I guess to a certain extent, what still has me interested is the mystery of it now more than anything, but it's still, it captivates my imagination. And there's always that what if, like what if there's actually vampires, or what if there's a fucking gargoyle monster that jumps off of buildings.
Right.
It's always that what if and the mystery behind it, you know?
Right. And that kind of made me a little bit an anti-skeptic when I was young. Like, I don't know. Did you give any...
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you give any thought to the people who are reporting these things? You know, like, to me, I always kind of felt that if someone's reporting something this strange and they're not fucking wearing gold Rolexes and on a tour bus trying to tell their story, that this, I don't know, there's just this common truth to it. Like a common agreed upon just humanity type thing. I don't know how to explain it, to where, why would this person make this story up? If it's been shown throughout history with people bullshitting stories like this. They get their name in the paper for a month and that's it. And sometimes we see cases like Woody Derenberger where he loses his fucking family. They can't take what happened and what's going on because of it. Sometimes it costs people their jobs. Sometimes it costs people their freedoms. And I never understood why people would make the story up. Of course, I understood there was fucking cuckoo birds.
Yeah, there's always the weirdos and the wild cards and the people that just want that recognition for like 10 minutes because somebody read their name in a newspaper and like, yes, finally I made it. Yeah. But we've talked on we've had plenty of discussions on here about what makes a reliable witness, and to me it's not the position they hold in life. Like, you can have cops that aren't reliable witnesses, but people like to, you know, if a police officer reports something, they always like to say it's a police officer, so like that holds added weight to their observation. But to me, if a reliable witness is more somebody that people vouch for, like that when you hear like the story of the hunter that got abducted and his friends are all like, yeah, he's a reliable guy, there would be no, like, this would be way out of character for him to make something like this up and then to stand by it for all your life. Like, to me, that makes a reliable witness.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a good way to put it. There's so many cases to where, that they're just so nuts. I mean, the Loveland Frogman, the Dover Demon, these people came forward with this stuff and they stuck with it. And it was funny. I may have mentioned it on the show before. I'm pretty sure I did, but I experienced something that was super cool. We watched this fucking app called Pluto. It's done by channels, so you can go watch fucking a channel of unsolved mysteries. It plays unsolved mysteries all day. That's all it does. And as a young man, I watched all those. But now I'm a fucking old man, and I do a podcast with you, and we talk about this shit, and I got to watch these reruns of unsolved mysteries of shit that we've now covered, that I'm super familiar with. So I got to see the actual people who experience these things on these cases I'm so familiar with. One of them that stands out to me it was the UFO case where the two ladies were driving down the road with their grandson. I believe it was a mother, a daughter, and her grandson. They were older. Yeah,
the Cash Landrum incident.
Yes, and they got radiation burns and all that stuff.
And the dashboard melted.
Mm-hmm. It's a great case. There's no reason to doubt these people's story when you read about it. But I got to watch those ladies talk about it, and it gives it even...
I remember that episode distinctly.
Yeah, it was scary. They were shooken up. They were terrified. They were scared of the health problems they were experiencing after that incident. But it just kind of made me, the way this story played out, think about that and what made these stories stick with us instead of just kind of laughing them off and being like, that's fucking weird. Because there's a lot of people who do. They just don't consider this to be real at all or a possibility, and it's all hogwash, and it doesn't capture their imagination. Maybe that's just it.
Yeah, they got to tap into it.
Yeah.
You got to, sometimes you just got to let yourself, like, let that little kid out sometimes, and I that's the shittiest thing about being an adult is the fucking the lack of magic in the world anymore, you know. And I think that's kind of part of it, because that the again, it's the what if, that if true, that adds magic to the world, even if it's not like, you know, fantastical magic. It's still something that is alien, for lack of a better term, not necessarily out of this world, but you know, alien as in outside of our normal picture of reality. And I think if you just like we always joke about the patron saint of the show, Joe Nickel, and his barn owl thing. And like, I remember back in the day, I used to hate Joe Nickel. Like, I couldn't, he was just like one of those guys. I'm like, oh, here we go. Here, Joe Nickel's coming out and he's gonna fucking
burn it all to the ground.
Talk shit about whatever my beloved alien / cryptid / whatever of the week is. And I just couldn't stand guys like that. And I would always think like how can you not even consider it? How can you not? And now I look at him with kind of a different point of view. I still think he's like, he's just I feel like he's very close-minded to the notion of it. I prefer people that are open-minded skeptics, that are there to see actually whether or not this is something real, as opposed to someone who takes the stance of, let me figure out all the reasons why it's not what people are reporting.
Right. That's how I felt. And as a kid, seeing him on countless things, trying to shoot things down. And that's what it seems like you're right. That's the feeling I got. He's trying to poke holes in something. That's what he's trying to do. And I felt so much like, even in this tiny little niche, there's got to be one of you pricks that's got to go against the grain. No, you can't have your aliens. You can't have your sea monster. I was like, why? Why are you here? Just to shoot.
Why, Joe Nickel? Why do you hate me?
Yeah. But I mean, I've grown to respect the guy. I think he's needed. There's going to be people who there's not going to be. There always is people who eat shit hook, line, and sinker, and then turn into fanatics.
And you need someone that grounds it. I'm literally, as we're recording this, to my right, I've got my Joe Nickel barn owl print on the wall. He looks at me judgmentally every time I record the show now.
Judgmentally?
You're wasting your time. Well, he does. On that print, he does have kind of a judgmental look on his face.
He's
like,
oh,
you're up to your bullshit again. And you know what, Joe? I am up to my bullshit.
Tonight we're going to talk about something that I came across, probably like a YouTube short or something like that, but I found it interesting, so I dug into it. It's about Lockport, Alaska. Have you ever heard about Lockport?
I can't say that I have.
It's a town in Alaska. It was first, I don't know, colonized by a British naval captain in the 1700s, but late 1800s is when settlers arrived and really made the area a permanent place. By 1900, they had built a cannery and everything. By 1921, it was a fully functional town with its own post office and everything. But something weird started to happen in Lockport. People started to go missing. And I know that people talk about the Alaskan Triangle. This is outside of the Alaskan Triangle. And I know that some people go to Alaska to get lost in a way. But these were whole hunting parties of people disappearing.
Like large hunting parties, or like just like a few dudes here and there?
From the stories, it's most of the time it was people who worked at the cannery, so probably like 5 or 6 buddies. Then in 1931, a man named Andrew Kamluck, he was found dead, and that wasn't a big deal. It was the manner of his death that gave everybody in the town pause. He was killed with a weapon, bludgeoned from behind, and next to him was the murder weapon, which is said to have been a huge piece of logging equipment that must have been swung at him like a club. The only thing was that the piece of equipment was far too heavy and large to be lifted in any way by a single person. After that, a gold prospector who lived in nearby Port Granham disappeared on his way to work, never to be seen again. They never found a trace of him. His body was never found. By this time, supposedly locals were finding human remains scattered across the beaches, destroyed in ways that they had never seen before, not even by any animal.
Like, what do you mean by destroyed? Like, crushed, ripped apart?
They used the word mutilated. I mean, not eaten.
Okay.
Mutilated.
So, what?
Not predation.
What do they say about blood being found at the scene?
Nothing.
So, could we have a potential case of human mutilation here?
Maybe. The story will change. After that, a fisherman named Tom Larson had claimed to see a large, hairy beast on the beach near his home. And so startled he was that he ran home, retrieved his rifle, and returned to the spot where the beast remained. And in the stories that I found about this, the writings, they used the term, he allowed it to leave in peace.
Like, what does that mean? Like, he just was like, all right, go on your way?
Yeah, maybe shouted, shoo, scat, get
out of here, get.
Then a group of hunters who were tracking a moose quickly abandoned their hunt when they found 18-inch human-like footprints of something that was seemingly already tracking the moose. They found a clearing in some bush sometime later and figured that's where the animal had attacked the moose. And if it was big enough to kill a moose, they got the fuck out of there.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't want to tangle with anything that's big enough to kill a moose with its bare hands.
Yep. I got 18-inch human-like footprints. 18 inches is not too big for a footprint, I don't think. I don't know.
I mean, that's pretty substantial size. That's 1.5 feet.
Yeah.
Foot.
I don't know. I guess that's something.
I mean, maybe if you're Shaq, that's nothing to worry about, but.
Right. There's existing humans with that size foot. Another group of hunters went missing. A bunch of workers from the cannery were out to try to gather some provisions, only for their horribly mutilated bodies to appear scattered across the shores.
So in my head, I'm just picturing like these carcasses torn apart and just like strewn about. So it's like you just look and it's just this line of torn body parts. It's pretty gruesome stuff.
I'd hate to lie and say I hate to get graphic, but these people are fucking roughing it, man. They're in Alaska. They've got to kill, catch, and butcher everything they're eating, basically. For them to call these bodies horribly mutilated, what are you thinking here? I mean, they're not saying limbs were found. They're not saying body parts were found. They're saying it's mutilated and destroyed. So are we talking about like the upper torso with one arm attached? Or are we talking about a pelvis with a leg? What are you thinking and picturing in your head?
In my head, I'm just picturing like what it would look like if something grabbed a person and just started ripping pieces off and then throwing them as it was walking with this person's body. That's what I picture in my head. So like maybe a forearm here, a hand there, a chunk of torso over here, the head over there, the fucking foot still attached to the ankle, the other half of the leg.
Yeah, a lower jaw somewhere.
Yeah, some intestines, maybe a squished heart.
Yeah.
You know, all sorts of goodies just strewn about.
Well, cannery workers would try to flee the area, but were always persuaded to return and work. But supposedly things like this continue to happen with such frequency and severity. Some news reports and testimonies claiming up to over 35 mangled bodies were found in nearby lakes, rivers, lagoons, and beaches over a 20-year period, that the entire town was abandoned in 1949, save the postmaster who stayed until 1951, and then he got the fuck out of there.
Wow, that's wild.
Right.
And is there any other potential reason why they would have left? Did the cannery explode, or was there poison in the well, or, you know, was there any other reason why people would have left other than a forest demon ripping people apart?
Well, see, that's why I asked you the questions in the beginning, because, I mean, researching this, it became one of these things where you find the same story over and over on every fucking site that's written about it, right? They're just copying, pasting, literally, the same fucking story. So I wanted to try to cross-reference this and try to corroborate something, some type of anything from this. You can go look up Lockport. It's abandoned. It's a real place. People did leave there in 1949. They abandoned the place completely. But I came across an article for, I'm going to take it out, Mike, because I don't even want to say their name. Magazine, I guess. I don't know what the fuck that is. It's an article.
You never heard of
No.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with
They had an article on there, and they were a little bit snobby about the case.
Yep, that sounds like them.
They pointed out that the information we're getting, the story I just told you, they go off by saying there's no definitive source for this story. That's the same story for a lot of stuff we cover. Just because there's like only one account of one dude seeing the sky spitter doesn't mean I'm ready to discount the sky spitter.
Yeah, I want the sky spitter to be real more than I want most things to be real.
Yeah. I bet we can sit here and negate all the stories we've covered over the years. If we're trying to hold the standard of not being able to find 20 fucking corroborating news articles about it.
Oh, right. Like we'd have Mothman, and that would Mothman, the Phoenix Lights, the Hudson Valley Lights, and like that'd be about it.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of people who can like consider if none of these stories were written in a newspaper, they're just not real. And like I said in the beginning, that's not how I found about these things. I didn't read the fucking paper when I was 5. I read about them later. But there's a lot of people who see like, well, what's there to back it up? It has to be in the fucking newspaper, which I don't get. And I think having that attitude kind of destroys the very idea of studying and reporting on the paranormal. People stick to one thing and shit on the other. They don't believe stories like this because there's no newspaper or magazine articles about it, but completely believe in like histories of certain people who have no written record and cultures who didn't believe in practicing recording their histories. They'll believe that, but they won't believe something fantastic. So after looking into this case, it seems the whole world has dismissed, mainly because it doesn't show up in local newspapers, but it does. The most reported account is the same thing I just told you. It comes from a 2009 article from the Homer Tribune, written by a lady named Naomi Kaluda. I hope I said that right. Forgive me if I didn't. Where she reported the story exactly what I told you. It's the most common thing. In 2009 is kind of early for this story to be everywhere with the same story. But there is 2 sources that she drew from. A 1973 article from the Anchorage Daily News, and she actually interviewed 2 locals. And that's where all these certain names, the parties, this is where we get this information. There is articles on this, what's happened. Every time I looked up this article, it's just poo-pooed. This whole story was poo-pooed. And they point out, they state that they looked up the local newspapers from the time. And this is where I got irritated. They report that there is no records of any of the deaths reported in this story. And that there was only 1 death in the area reported at the time. And in the same breath, the next sentence in his report says
when you say reported, what do you mean by reported?
Like
to the authorities?
In the newspapers, in obituaries.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah.
But in the same breath, he says that there's only 1 murder reported in that area at that time. But then this is what pissed me off. He next says something to the effect of, but there had to have been more than 1 murder at the area based on human nature alone. So he's trying to use a newspaper article to disprove his point while he uses the fact of that there had to have been more reports that weren't reported happening to support his story, I guess, to help debunk this. But I just don't believe that in a town where the 2 main jobs are mining and logging, there's only 1 fucking death. I don't buy that at all. I don't buy that there was only 1 murder. Does that make any sense to you?
I wouldn't say so, no. It seems weird that an entire town would abandon just because of 1 murder.
Right. And he tries to give some explanation that there was a highway built. I don't know what I don't know what that would have to do with anything. Nobody abandoned the other nearby towns when this highway was built. But
I mean, there is a history of towns being abandoned due to highways being built because it reroutes traffic, like a lot of the smaller areas along Route 66. Once Route 66 got rerouted and stopped getting used as the main highway, a lot of those places dried up, and it's just because of rerouting traffic. But if you're not reliant on like outside income, then the highway shouldn't really matter. Like if you're just a small town that's sounds like the cannery is like the biggest thing that's going on.
yeah, the only thing that a road nearby would do is bring more supplies to a town like that, I would think.
Yeah, unless it was like routing transport away from town. But even still, if it's not like the old roads closed and the town just became like this island. No one, there's no roads in, there's no roads out. We're on our own. But if that was the case, then people would still be there because again, there's no roads in, there's no roads out. So yeah, that doesn't make much sense in this case.
As a story, as just that, what do you think about it? I mean, it's a place that's actually abandoned, and no matter what this guy says about there's no writings about it. I mean, I did a little bit more research, and you can get stories of people disappearing from this area, this town where they settled since the 1700s. The British naval officers who landed there and tried to settle there wrote about it. It's documented in their writing.
And what was the year that it was abandoned?
49.
So I wonder if there's history of weird mutilations or murders or deaths in the area that go back, like way back into like pioneer times. Or even if there were native stories about it or something,
Right. That leads me to a question I have for you. 'Cause instead of just shooting this down by, trying to shoot down reports with the same method, you're trying to support your own, like that guy in that article did. What would you do? Let's say you had your druthers. You're a fucking millionaire. You have all the resources in the world. How are you going to research this? Let's go back. Because people have gone back as there's a Discovery Plus show, I think in 2002, that went back to investigate Lockport. And they said that, I don't know. I didn't watch the special. I don't know what happened to that, but obviously nothing, or else we would have heard about that. There was a group of hunters that went back in 2007 that said something stalked their camp. Something huge on two legs stalked their camp for all 3 days of their trip. So how would you handle investigating this?
I think you'd have to interview witnesses. If there's no like trace evidence, like if there's no footprints, there's no hair samples, there's no fingerprints or anything like that. You're just hearing stories from people that are having these experiences. I mean, that's really all you can do. And then kind of look at local history, see if there's any similar things that have been reported in the past. Maybe talk to the older people in the area, see if they've got any memories of it. And beyond that, what more can you really do?
Right.
Go out to the area yourself.
Exactly.
Set up camp, see what happens.
Go to the locals. Yeah. Seek an unfiltered word of mouth history. And asking myself that question, it kind of made me think about the weird cases that people report. We kind of have to believe them. If I had my choice on how to investigate them, that's the first place I would go. I would go back and ask them and see if something like this is supposed to be there. Do they say something like that exists? Does it match with what's going on? And as it turns out, there is. The locals, the natives that lived there, said that there's this entity called the Nakwinak that I've heard it described many ways. Some people call it a hairy man, the hairy man. That makes people in the cryptozoology field think of Bigfoot. We've got these giant footprints, right? We've got native legend talking about hairy man. In the article that I read from that website, Mike, by the way, says that he couldn't find any word for that word in any of the local dialect at all. and then had to correct himself because it actually translates to people stealers.
People stealers.
Yes. There's supposedly this entity, this hairy people, these types of hairy people that will take people, children, adults, doesn't matter. And I don't know, when I heard that, this is we've covered Bigfoot cases to where they used to snatch people, right? Go into raid villages, right?
I mean, we've heard stories of that, yeah. And then we've heard the missing 411 stuff with people talking about a bipedal hairy thing that has been reported, and then the bear stories that we did I don't know, maybe it was last year. Fucked if I know. Fairly recently in the show's history, we did a show about bear creatures and then again in the missing 411, kids that come back say some hairy creature that sometimes is a wolf, sometimes is a bear, sometimes is an ape, sometimes is a hairy man, keeps them warm. So I wonder if this is another one of those things that's tied to missing 411.
Well, this one's pissed, man. Apparently it rips the fucking people apart.
Yeah, this one is the angry version of that thing. He's like, no, we're done taking them to our side. I'm fucking these guys up.
It's time to send a message, Bobby.
Bob, you gotta bring it down. And he's like, oh, I'm not bringing it down. I'm bringing it out, motherfuckers.
Rip their fucking legs off.
Yeah, tearing their spines out and then beating them with it. And you know what? We have it coming. Bob's right.
They said to be able to hide in the trees, I guess in a spiritual form, retreat into the trees. And there is reports of Bigfoot in Alaska. One thing I came across in one place and I lost it. I couldn't come up with it again because it made it more interesting. This is not a Bigfoot. It's not a giant humanoid ape type creature. It's described as a 14-foot tall man-like otter.
What? A man-like otter?
Yeah, that's why the bodies are found near lakes and lagoons. And
so is this the Alaskan version of the Dobar show?
I think so, man.
You pronounce it? Is it? I can't remember. I think Dobar Cho.
Dobar Chew, I think.
Chew.
Yeah. They could describe it as being 14 feet tall too. They said it's gigantic. So it just quickly turned into one of these weird one-off stories for me. This creature that's just beyond imagination. And even with somebody from some article trying to tear it down by there nothing being written in the fucking newspaper about it, there being a bunch of native lore that backs this up. That what was happening to this town, whatever was causing it, it's supposed to be there. The local native says it's there. They avoided it when the British naval people landed there. They noticed that there wasn't too many people there, and the locals told them, no, we avoid that whole fucking area. Don't settle there. So it's supposed to be there. So it made me feel like a kid again and going like, oh, cool. Like I'm back in the game, hearing that it's supposed to be there, that it's something that locals knew about.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then at the end, finding that there apparently there's writings and logs and journals from the 1700s reporting people disappearing, and not men getting lost and being found later, just people disappearing. And everybody who goes there to this day reports an oppressive feeling and almost being watched while being anywhere in the town.
That's weird. I wonder how what the diameter on that is. Like if it really is just the town. Like what if it's a curse?
Yeah. I find it interesting that the locals, if it is this big otter beast, I mean, it's able to.
I want it to be an otter beast. Like that's the coolest thing ever. Fuck the ape man. I want an otter beast. He's gonna grab your head and smash it against a rock.
Yep.
Like you're a fucking clam.
Wouldn't that destroy the oddly mutilated bodies? Its arms aren't being ripped off. Like if an ape attacks somebody, it would pull their arm off and probably beat him with it, But the bodies sound like they've been bashed and gnawed apart.
Yeah, maybe he's just chomping through them. He just grabs an arm and he just bites through it, and the guy's like, oh my God. And then he bites his throat out, and the guy, and then he's dead. Yeah. Oh my God, I want Otter Beast the movie so bad now.
Yeah. I mean,
Give me a 14-foot Otter Beast and
I,
make it awesome.
I would not mind it being like a D-rated modern monster movie either. It could be done with 1992.
Oh no, I want it to be played completely straight though.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like I don't want it to be like a self-aware B movie. I want it to be played completely straight as a fucking terrifying otter monster. That's what I want. I don't want CGI either. I want it all practical because practical special effects are sexy.
Do you think it's naive of that person who wrote that article to solely make his argument on just because there's no reports of these deaths? I mean, do you think a small town like that would be in a rush to report fucking 20 deaths?
It makes me wonder, like, so you could go one of two ways. You could go the way where it was just one death and it's kind of spun out of control over the years, like the game of telephone. The other thing, the other side would be that this town is like a Stephen King novel and that all this terrible shit is happening and the residents are covering up for it.
Oh,
and rather than
hold on there, dude. You know what? That's interesting that people who lived there while this was supposedly going on is saying this is what fucking happened, and the official report is that it didn't. Maybe they were feeding that thing.
Maybe. Oh, yeah, they're all in on it, man. They are, and then it got to the point where it became too heartbreaking. So the people leave. They're like, no. And maybe that was the thing. Maybe it was like the next in line. It was like a lottery type situation, and the next in line was like, you know what? Fuck this, I'm out. Takes their family and they leave, and then so on and so forth, and then ghost town. And then the postmaster general's like, well, shit, I don't want to get eaten by demon otter thing. I'm out too.
They already know it's wrath, what it can do.
Yeah. So when you're the last one left and the otter hungers, what are you going to do? Order a pizza from a nearby town, beat the guy over the head, and get the fuck out of town and let pizza guy get eaten. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And then you get free pizza too. So, wins all around, except for the pizza guy. He loses. Loses in a very big way. Although death by otter monster, I suppose you could think of worse ways to go.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it will just like grab you, jump into the river, lay on its back, and kind of like, tickle and mess around with you and try to wash you for a few hours before it fucking just...
No, that thing is going to drag you into the water, lay on its back with a fucking rock on its stomach and smash your skull against it so it can lick your brains out. That's what it's going to do.
Lick your brains out.
Yeah. Stick its fucking otter tongue right in your skull cavity. Slurp them right out after it shatters your skull on its rock that it's got on its stomach.
Good Lord.
This thing looks adorable while he's doing it too. He's like the cutest thing ever. If he wasn't so big and terrifying, you'd want to give him a hug and a pet.
Yeah.
But, if you try that, he'll smash your head on the fucking gut rock.
Cute little sonic chirps and noises it makes.
Yeah. Yeah. With its little tiny ears and goddamn, otters are so cute.
Terribly.
And that's why giant otters are so terrifying. They're too cute. You're too big to be that cute, you son of a bitch. And then you get eaten.
So with the same story being reported, and now knowing where that source came from, older article, he said that the 73 article, there's like the only remnants of it that you can find comes from a book that she cited in her article that you can hardly find anymore. And they give the name of the book, Living with Bigfoot or something like that. And then again, had to correct himself and be like, actually, this whole article is well preserved in the archives at this place. Click the link to go read it. I mean, his shit was full of corrections after correction. But just as the story played out to you, do you believe this story, or are you, how do you weigh on this one? Did this happen? No matter what the creature was.
So I would like more stories from the past, I think, before I would really buy into it. To me, it sounds like a local legend that's being attributed to a horrific accident. Um, the weirdest thing for me is the first case you mentioned, the dude that was killed by the machinery.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if there was like some sort of vehicle or anything that could have gotten to that area that would have been able to lift it, like a I don't know how heavy this thing was, but like maybe like a bobcat or even like a small crane or something.
Yeah.
Or even like a tow truck, or fucked if I know, I don't know. But where it could possibly be humans that did it. So I wonder about that, but other than that, like it just seems like a local legend that spiraled out of control and has kind of taken on mythical status.
I like it,
but
I'm gonna consider that place still abandoned because it's inhabited by giant otter man. That's why people still won't settle.
That's what I want it to be. As much as I don't think that's what it is, I want it to be the otter man even more.
Okay, then.
I've never wanted to be more incorrect about something in my life than I want Otter Man to be a real, living, breathing entity.
And I guess the question I have for you to wrap this up is local stories evidence to you?
It's only evidence if there is a strong case to be made for local legends. I mean, we know how local legends start. I mean, look at the fucking Bunny Man, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say that local, because I've talked about Witch's Hollow on the show before from my youth, and that was a local legend among my friends, or the Lonely Bull Gazebo. I'm pretty sure I talked about that as well. But these were just local legends in my area that were just kind of talked about among our friend group, and we would kind of use it to I think make our childhood excursions into the woods and surrounding area more mystical and more adventurous, because we're potentially going into haunted woods at this point. Witches were hung here. Clearly there's witch ghosts.
Could be there.
What is a story thing that's created by kids, and what is just like an established tale, and where does it start? Like, did it start as just like a kid's story and then it kind of spiraled from there? Was there an event that inspired the story? There's with local legends like that, there's just so many different things, and I think there's certain places where there's a local legend where there's more to it, like Mothman, for instance. That seems to be there were enough witnesses of weirdness that happened during that time that I can safely assume that there was some weirdness that happened.
Mm-hmm.
What was behind the weirdness, I don't know, and I'm not going to speculate on it at the moment, during this episode anyway. If we ever do another Mothman episode, I will speculate there. And like the Beast of Bray Road, that's another one where it's been seen by just so many people. There's got to be something to it, but I don't know. I think it depends on the story ultimately, and the witness that started telling the story. Even if it is just one witness, that like the way that witness carries themselves and their reliability and all that, I think that weighs heavily.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a sucker, because in my mind, when I don't know, I think about the Mothman case, and there's, like you said, there's enough witnesses, enough living witnesses, just people who saw Mothman that were filmed, and you get to look at them. Like, I got to watch all the people on Unsolved Mysteries and watch them tell their story. But in my mind, if I ask myself, what the fuck is that then? My mind says, ask the local people who saw it. And I don't know what a Mothman is, but that's what it was. That's what they say it was. And to me, that's what makes it cool. if you break it down just how like that simple, and I have I don't know if faith or trust or what's the word, but with a case like that where there were tons of witnesses, there's not a question of what it was. They can draw it. They saw it. It dropped a lady's baby. They saw what it was. They know exactly what it was. They drew the pictures of what it was. No matter how unbelievable that is, that's what it was. What is it? I don't know. But for a brief period of time on this earth, that thing in my mind 100% existed. It was 100% real. I don't know if Mothman exists today. There's plenty of fucking sightings. And one of my favorite episodes of ours is the Flying Humanoids episode you did. That was fantastic. Apparently there's something like that going on still. So maybe it's still real. And that's, I kind of like those cases to where you can back it up with witnesses. Maybe all the witnesses isn't definitive proofs, but it becomes overwhelming. And you have to go, okay, well then what was it? And then ask them. They'll tell you. That's exactly what it was. It wasn't a sandhill crane. It wasn't a balloon. It wasn't kids playing around. They watched it fly away. And to me, that's what's cool about studying all this shit. That's, in my mind, that's how it works. That's what makes me excited about it, is no matter what the fuck I think, is that if I had a choice, I'd go ask them. And you know what? People already have. And they've physically drawn pictures of what they saw. Like that fucking owl man in England. They drew what they saw. What was it? That. What's the fuck that? I don't know, but that's flying around out there right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't fucking know. You tell me what that is, man.
Yeah. I don't know. But in our existence right now, it's out there right now.
It's a goddamn flying beast monster, and it likely wants to suck my soul and blood and anus.
Right.
Help.
Imagine being like a close friend of the people who saw Flatwoods, or even like that, that maybe that was your wife, and she's not going to come home and make something like that up. You know her, and she's not going to make that up.
Yeah.
And she comes home and says, this is what happened. We all have radiation burns. The dog's fucking dying from radiation. It dies from radiation. What happened? I don't know. What did it look like? They drew it. What is that? I don't know. But that's what it was. That's what happened. And to me, that's what makes it cool. To hear.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a little bit more history on the two witnesses that she interviewed for her article. I forget the lady's name, Helen. Oh, I forget. I'm sorry, but they talked about her a lot, and somebody reported that she was a lady in white type ghost. They named it her, and she would walk around and wail, and she had a black dress on that was so long it would drag on the ground.
What?
But then you find out that's the lady who fucking was interviewed for the article. That's just some bullshit somebody made up. So
what?
In this case, you ask her, she said that's what happened. That's what was going on, and she knows what it was. It was this creature, this otter man. So, yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, man. Well, fucking, I guess if you're in the area around there in Alaska, then don't get eaten by otters. I don't know.
Still,
I want an otter man. I would like an otter man monster here.
You probably do have one.
We don't have any cool cryptids like that. Like, I don't even know. Like, I know that there have been Dogman and Bigfoot sightings in the Adirondack Mountains, but those are like the closest foothills to the mountains are like almost an hour away from me. And the mountains themselves are like over an hour to 2 hours and beyond, depending on how far north I want to go. But my local area doesn't have anything cool. We've got made up kids stories like Witch's Hollow. I want a fucking otter monster. Or I'll even take a swamp monster at this point. Give me a fucking squirrel monster. Got enough of those fuckers running around. I'll go outside. I'll go to fill the bird feeders in the backyard, and all of a sudden I get attacked by Squirrel Man. Or Squirrel Squatch, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's going to be there, and it's going to attack me for my corn.
Knocks you to the ground with a slow, wide backhand while it roars.
Yeah. Yeah. And they find me with a bunch of, like, gnaw marks all up my legs. He wanted my corn. He stole my corn. Who stole your corn, sir? He had a fluffy tail. The squirrels, it wasn't a squirrel, it was a beast. It was a beast, I tell you. And then they lock me up, and no one ever hears from me again because Squirrel Squatch stole my shins and my brain. Well, not my brain, but my mind. He shattered my mind. Damn you, Squirrel Squatch, you son of a bitch.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.